Welcome to the Inspire to Invest podcast, where we're sharing stories from real estate investors and how investing has changed their lives. This episode of the Inspire to Invest podcast has been brought to you by Vantage Point Financial. Welcome to the Inspire to Invest podcast. I have Alla Ladygina here with me today, and she's been investing in real estate for the past 8 years. And with her husband, Vladimir, she owns Horizon Capital Real Estate Group, which is focused on purchasing apartment buildings with 6+ units in Southern Ontario. They implement strategic renovations to the buildings, hold them long-term to provide tenants with updated, self-sufficient rental units. She's very passionate about real estate, but specifically women in real estate and their success. And she currently serves as the executive director for the Canadian Real Estate Women Association, also known as CREWA, a national nonprofit organization that supports and promotes women's success in real estate. And she's also the proud mother of 3 beautiful children. So thank you so much, Alla. We appreciate you being with us today. How are you?
Oh, thank you, Serena. It's my pleasure to be here on this side of the screen. I love your podcast and I'm happy to be here.
Oh, thank you so much. So obviously you've got quite the journey in the past 8 years in terms of developing the real estate investing experience. But what were you doing before real estate came into the picture?
I was very focused on building a career from my high school. I knew that I would be a doctor. I became a doctor before we immigrated to Canada.
Wow.
Then here, and in short, 3 years, I became a registered nurse here.
Yeah.
Because I stopped working with clients, with patients, even back in my country. So here I also knew that I wanted to do something not at the bedside. So I went to public health.
Yeah.
And that's where I was planning to build my career. And with that, simultaneously, we started to invest in real estate because we had kids.
Yeah.
And we proactively wanted to protect their future as well as our future.
Yeah.
So real estate was something instrumental just for protection of the future, because we knew that just focused on a career may not necessarily provide you with the security.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Was there anyone in particular that encouraged you to invest in real estate, or a specific catalyst that made you think that that would be the best course of action for you?
We always get inspired by someone else's success. So when my friends were buying an apartment building, or my other friends were sharing that they bought something using the salary of the wife so that they can use the salary of the husband to buy something else.
Yeah.
All those little pieces, they were sparkling little ideas until all the snowball built up into something big. And we decided to, okay, we actually can, if they can, let's learn how we can.
Yeah. So then how did you educate yourself? Because it's not like you just went and bought a single family home. Like if you're buying apartment buildings, like, you want to make sure that you're, have a good understanding of due diligence and stuff like that. So what steps did you take to make sure that you were, evaluating things and underwriting deals properly and managing them properly?
You mean right now or back then?
Back then.
Well, actually, I think that if we talk about just a couple of most important steps, is that you need to embrace the position that you're the leader.
Yeah.
Or you need to make sure that someone on your team is the leader and someone is actually the driver.
Yeah.
So don't assume that if you partner with someone, then the bus will be hopefully driving somewhere.
Yeah.
If there is no leader assigned, that most likely your deal will be a very average with average returns, which is not bad. Usually it's very safe. But if you want to pursue something which can give you something which you can call like a success, you have to make sure that you are either in the leadership position or someone very strong in the leadership position. So if we're talking about something small, then like in our case, we bought our first condo. It was a very small condo in a good location in Toronto.
Yeah.
And while my husband, he was busy building his career, I was busy at home with my, at that time, 1 child.
Yeah.
I was waiting to be admitted to the university, I think, and I had a lot of time. So I spent that time carefully going through every single expense, every single deduction, potential benefit, and all that. So instead of what was around the property. So instead of, for example, focusing on flyers for grocery store, which is kind of like a one-time savings, which is great too. Like you can do it too. But it's particular with women. I find like they, and men too, they focus on something which saves you in a very small amount in one moment. So instead
Yeah.
of that, I focused on my bills for the property. And that's how I saw that, okay, so even though my payment is that much, but the actual like waste money is going to interest is this is
Yeah.
what we're paying for the principal, this is how much we can use if we sell the property for this and
Yeah.
this. I quickly learned like what exactly will be the transaction cost, like what exactly would be going into the Excel sheet.
Yeah. Yeah.
And with all those, it started to build that habit of having a system
Yeah.
and a habit as a leader to go over all those reports regularly.
Yeah.
And it sounds very simple, but in fact, many people in households and even many investors, like even I sometimes struggle with that because you
Yeah.
have to force yourself to go and first embrace like face the reality, embrace all the
Yeah.
changes, be happy with the profits, do something like make decision about the loss and move on.
Yeah.
So this is a similar process as we do with due diligence. You have to
Yeah.
make sure that you have every single line when you're
Considered.
either underwriting 6+
Yeah.
multifamily building, or even if you're buying your first single family. Well, that unicorn doesn't exist, but let's assume you're buying a single family home for as a rental
Yeah.
property. You have to make sure that you not only put their mortgage, taxes, and that's it, but
Yeah.
you have to make sure that you add their
Unforeseen expenses and stuff like that.
all the bill
Yeah.
insurance, that you add their capital expenses, that you add their property management, even if you manage that yourself because you're
Yeah.
planning to scale, then
Yeah.
someone else will have to do it. Or you have to
Yeah.
at least be aware that that risk is there. Once your risk is calculated, then it's
Yeah.
fine. You kind of like decreasing that risk for you.
Yeah. So now, as you've grown your portfolio, I assume that you're leveraging investors' money to scale. So what does your portfolio look like right now?
So my portfolio right now look like properties from single family home to 8 townhouses complex
Yeah.
all across between I mean all across South Ontario between Toronto
Yeah.
and Pembroke.
Yeah.
At this stage, we're selling, which is on pause kind of because of the rates and
Yeah.
the market situation. We're in the process of offloading those which are smaller.
Yeah.
And we're still keeping those which are 4 units and more.
Yeah.
Sevenplex, for example, in Coburg, we're going to keep for now.
Yeah.
It works for us. The recent purchase, eight townhouses complex, as I mentioned, we
Yeah.
bought in July. We're going to keep virtually forever unless we go with some other exit strategies, such as maybe creating a different titles for each townhouse and maybe
Yeah.
selling, or maybe not, or maybe splitting those townhouses into smaller units,
Yeah.
depending what the market shows us. With having said that, we look at US as well, only
Yeah.
because we have to be flexible.
Yeah.
For many months, and I would say even years, we tried to invest in our own backyard, and that's truly where the vision is, and that's what we would like to be doing to keep
Yeah.
the money working for our communities, because real estate investor who invests in real estate is the same idea as a local business, right? Because
Yeah.
when we invest in local communities, we do increase the all the potential, all the values in these particular
Yeah.
communities.
Yeah,
But
I
if
think a couple of reasons though, like just from talking to so many different investors and even for myself, like I think Ontario comes with some challenges in the sense that the housing prices are very high. So that in itself, the numbers may not always work. But then you're also faced with a very challenging LTV. So if you do run into tenant issues, I know that may not be the appetite that the average investor has. So they may look outside to other provinces that are more landlord friendly and things like that. But I had a question in regards to protecting the future for your children, for example. How have you set up your corporate structure so that you can pass things down to them effectively? Are you using a family trust or are you using something else?
So with family trust, we do keep it in mind for something like that eightplex, for example, something which we're going to keep virtually forever. For the rest, if we're planning to sell it sooner than later, we
Yeah.
don't plan to add that to the family trust because the benefits may not really be like it doesn't necessarily make sense.
Yeah.
So what really makes sense to put into family trust is something which you're going to truly keep and
Yeah.
pass it to your children.
Yeah.
And at this point, I think that we're growing faster than we're knowing, if I can say that. So like 10 years ago, buying a single family was a dream.
Yeah.
And then that's what we were doing, right, for several years. And
Yeah.
then we realized that, okay, we need to switch to fourplexes. So we started buying fourplexes. And like,
Yeah.
why did we buy all the single families? We need to offload them. And then
Yeah.
after that, it was like, oh, why do we even bother like to worry about all those fourplexes with all this turnover if the power of cap rate is not working for you the way it
Yeah.
works in the multifamily
Yeah.
in the environment like you mentioned.
Yeah.
So with all those, it doesn't really make sense to put them there.
Yeah.
However, I do think that this is a necessary thing to have for a real estate investor who plans
I
to
was just
grow
thinking
and
more like the
scale.
tax strategy, right? So I know it may not necessarily be a family trust and they've changed some rules around that, that it has to be updated every 21 years or whatever that is. But I think that's a big thing that any real estate investor wants to consider is you build this big portfolio. You're not going to be here forever. So what do you put in place to make sure that it's as tax efficient as possible when the time comes that you can pass it down to your family and they're just not drowning in taxes and have to sell at that point,
100%.
right? So I was just curious to see if like what you were approaching that
Absolutely.
way.
And not only from the point where I can pass down something which I already have, but I also have a 15-year-old. So technically, he can work on his own project, say, in the next couple of years. However, he wouldn't be able to be on title until a certain age. So
Yeah.
through the family trust, he can really own from the day one,
Yeah.
while I'm the one and or my husband who is on title. And then through owning through the family trust, then when he is in that age when he can do it on his own,
Yeah.
he is the one, the owner
Yeah.
without the need to pay the taxes. I don't want to go too deep into that because I'm no expert, but
Yeah.
I do know that this is another benefit of having a structure like that.
Yeah.
So definitely something worth considering. That's what we're
Yeah.
planning to do. And you really, I'm really glad you touched that topic because thinking about all of those can bring really great benefit to real estate investors, especially
Yeah.
to those who are planning to scale. Doesn't
Yeah.
matter if passively or actively, because that moment when you realize that, oh my God, this all was structured wrong, comes usually way sooner than people expect.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's expecting the unexpected, right? Like it's people
Mhm.
that, you know, I can understand why RSPs, for example, were attractive to people that were high income earners and stuff like that. But you may not live to see your retirement come and be able to access all of that the way that you expect it to. And there's obviously like, it's not, it's just tax deferred. So there are challenges for your beneficiaries if maybe you don't live to the age that you expect and things like that. And even the impact on their personal taxes. So I think real estate's the same. And I think before you get too deep into anything, you want to make sure you understand the lay of the land appropriately. But going back to kind of your experience as a real estate investor, when you look at your entire portfolio and journey to this point, what would you say you're most proud of and what you feel, you know, has been most successful for you?
I saw that question, but I kind of skipped that because you always are in that imposter syndrome, and there is always, it's never enough, and it's always could have done better. But I am really proud that real estate investing allowed me to buy the most valuable thing you can buy is the time. And this year I was able to quit my job. Maybe not necessarily in the circumstances I really wanted, and I dreamt and I was dreaming how I would do that
Yeah.
because I was really in a pretty severe burnout at that point. So I
Yeah.
had to just make a choice. But I'm glad that even a challenging year like this, my real estate portfolio was able to somehow support that change.
Yeah.
The only one thing I wanted to do is to do that change sooner. Not
Yeah.
because I didn't like my job. I really liked my job, but it's just because the day only have 24 hours. You have to
Yeah.
prioritize something, right?
Yeah.
And I have 3 children. They grow so fast. I don't want to miss any of those. So
Yeah.
I'm really, really grateful that I still can continue pretty actively, like very actively in real estate. I can be with my kids. I can work from home. I can have
Yeah.
all the flexibility for travel. If we're talking about real estate on that side, I'm really proud that we were able to scale like fairly quickly. And this is a mind shift too, and the team growth into the multifamily space. Because
Yeah.
when I was dreaming about that, say 3 years ago, to me, that was something like, oh my God, like you like, who are those people who are doing that, right?
Yeah.
And now we are those people who get
Yeah.
calls from other people asking, like, could you please like give me an advice, or Alla, what would you do in this case? Would you buy
Yeah.
this building? Or like all those. I do have several mentees. They
Yeah.
don't pay to me in the money because my mentorship is way too expensive. Let me put it that way. Because I think that this is a very, like, you put your soul into that. So
Yeah.
at this point, I don't think I'm able to do that for money. However, they do have to pay their price in some other ways.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that I have that. And this is also part of what I'm really proud of, that I do have that expertise to share. Not at the scale at this point, and I don't think there will be ever that point when I'll be able to do that on a scale, but
Yeah.
it's very it's really something that I'm so proud of. And that
Yeah.
translates into that the complex of townhouses.
Yeah.
Our owner also bought a house in Italy this year too.
Oh,
This is
nice.
also a part of the dream. It also didn't happen the way we wanted that to happen, but it sounds cool. It
Yeah.
sounds really cool, and it makes me really excited.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just like life brings you so many unexpected things,
Yeah.
which are coming in a beautiful way, which I think I would never be able to gain in any 9 to 5 career, at least the
Yeah.
way how I know it. Maybe
Yeah.
it's just because this is my real passion, and that's why I feel like
Yeah.
I'm really finally found that place,
Yeah.
say for the next, I don't know, like what, 10 years or
Yeah.
so. Because the end goal, I think, is still to become a private lender and sit and more passively.
Yeah.
But this
Well,
is
to
for
your
now.
point, I think that that's one of the reasons why real estate investing is so important, that it gives people that additional safety net and the option. So whether you're sidelined by health issue, like a death in the family, something personal, your time with your kids that you require and stuff like that, at least it gives you that option. Because I think for people that don't have, like, they have no choice but to grind it out and, maybe compromise their health or their stress or whatever that may be. But on that note, we're just going to take a really brief break for a word for our sponsors, and we'll be right back.
It's Megan Betker, wealth coach and real estate investor from Victoria, BC. I've spent a decade helping business owners and real estate investors safeguard and supercharge their wealth. Today, I want to share some golden nuggets for real estate investors. Tip 1, diversify. In this ever-changing market, having a mix of assets is key. Tip 2, leverage the power of infinite banking. It's not just a tool, it's a game changer. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just diving into real estate, let's connect. Visit vantagepointfinancial.ca or follow us on Instagram at Megan Betker.
Inspired to Invest is proud to support the Beyond Success program. In today's complex world, it's absolutely crucial for our youth to learn how to take charge of their financial future. We believe that every young person deserves access to accurate, practical financial information. Designed to bridge the gap, the Beyond Success program leverages a comprehensive educational bootcamp to equip young minds with essential financial literacy skills. At Beyond Success, it's not just about teaching financial literacy, it's also about fostering a foundation for a prosperous and empowered future. Join us. Together we can build a brighter financial future for the next generations. Join us. Together we can build a brighter financial future for the next generations. Thanks again for following along with this episode of Inspired to Invest. In addition to real estate, investing, and running my own brand experience agency for 18 years, I also published a book called The Accidental Entrepreneur in October of 2021. This is my story, and it chronicles how I turned tragedy into triumph to embrace my destiny in entrepreneurship. If you're interested in picking up a copy, you can find the link at serenahomesrealtor.com, and you can also find my link tree with all of the retailers in the details below. Thanks again for your support. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Inspired to Invest podcast. I have Alla Ladygina here with me, and she's talking about all of her experiences as a real estate investor over the past decade. And I guess one of the things that I also want to understand, what's the craziest thing that's happened to you as a real estate investor so far?
Oh my God, there were so many. It's just, yeah, and it like the whole journey. But the craziest is that Okay, let me just throw a fact that we just had a tenant evicted from a unit who was for hoarding, and it took a year and 7 months.
Yeah. So going back to those landlord-friendly provinces where you might want to consider investing. That's
Yeah,
tricky.
exactly. And
Yeah.
the problem with this one was that he was not even living there. He
Yeah.
basically just used it for cheap storage.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, and there was a huge fire hazard, and the fire chief was on top of the case from the day 10. And she attended every single hearing, and every time she stated that the hoarding is on the level 9 on the scale from 1 to 10.
Yeah.
Still, it took a year and 7 months.
Yeah. I mean,
While
I talked to one real estate investor and he's like, if you want to fix a housing crisis here in Ontario, you've got to fix the landlord tenant board first, because that's one of the things that's holding a lot of investors back from maybe investing here or doing more here. And obviously, it does present a lot of challenges across the board. And speaking about challenges, when you look back at everything you've been through, what would you say is one of the biggest obstacles or challenges that you faced and overcome? And looking back, is there anything maybe that you would have done differently based on the lessons that came out of that?
So the biggest challenge and the learning from that, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, just in general, like when you look back at maybe starting out or scaling your portfolio or engaging investors, like, is there anything that stands out to you as one of the biggest obstacles that you've overcome?
The mindset. The mindset is a cliche for sure, but this is the right one. And it's a never-ending game. So if you're not enjoying constantly challenging yourself,
Yeah.
just don't start active real estate investing. Passive is a totally different story, and it's
Yeah.
not to attract capital investors, but it's just to say the truth, because passive is called passive for a reason.
Yeah.
An active is called an active real estate investor is an entrepreneurship in one of its most risky form. And it's not risky because real estate is risky. It's just because how your mind need to work,
Yeah.
how you need to push yourself anywhere else. And it's about the combination of being very grounded, all about numbers,
Yeah.
no joke, no BS with tenants, no emotions in the line. But at the same time, you have to be very loving people, very trusting your team, trusting your partners, trusting the universe, and being able to send clear vision of your goal, like what exactly you're trying to achieve here. Because once you don't have that, you most likely will see yourself very unsuccessful.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what you exactly achieved. And that's back to your question. What are you the most proud of, right? So you're mostly proud of what you were dreaming about, and then you achieved that or surpassed that dream, right? But if you never dreamed about that, if you didn't know, then if you don't know where you're going, then it doesn't matter what you became. Like you didn't achieve anything you planned, right? So combination of all those pieces, it's like being an engineer who at the same time is a yoga instructor or is an artist. So it's like both in one, and you have always to take care of your energy and everything. So going to the second part of your question, to do all those, start building your systems very, very soon.
Yeah.
You have to, considering the amount of work that entrepreneurs, and I should say that the real active real estate investor is both as investor and entrepreneur.
Yeah.
You need to make sure that you have the systems who allow you to focus only on 3 things, say, per day.
Yeah.
While you will have, good if they're not fires, but you will have 300 things to be done during this day. So if you didn't set that up and automated that, whichever way that works for you, you just wouldn't be able to get back to what's your role and focus on that growth. And then it'll be just very, very hard grinding every day, just on a willpower, and that will lead to a burnout again. You can do that you can do that for so long, but it's not a long term.
Yeah, no, I can appreciate that. I mean, I had my own business for 18 years and, I was winging it for the first 8 years. And then I finally hired a coach, then had mentors and stuff like that. And I was like, obviously, there's a lot that I don't know. There's going to be easier ways to get where you want to go and get there faster. So I guess leading into my next question in regards to education, obviously, you're a big part of CRUA. You bring in all these different speakers. I'm sure you've heard so many nuggets of wisdom. Is there anything that stands out to you as the best advice that you've heard someone pass along?
Oh, the just last meeting, we had three great speakers. We had multifamily conference represented by Seth and Katie. We
Yeah.
had Hina Han. We had she's a high performance real estate coach, and we had Andy Tran. They all
Yeah.
shared so much that I was just like, wow, so much wisdom in just one room.
Yeah.
We kept the room small and like on purpose. There is only, I think, like 36 at the max if people are standing.
Yeah.
So that created a very unique atmosphere
Yeah.
where people are like boiling in all this wisdom. But if I just say something, if I just take one, I would take what I think Hina says. She says that if you want to take just one thing, take this one. Be your word. And that means everything for active real estate investor. It
Yeah.
means everything for entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And this is really what that is. Be your word.
Yeah.
Whatever you say, you have to accomplish. And this is a huge, and it's one of the big part of what I believe in. And that's probably that big thing that if I see that in a person, we can find all ways around to be able to work together, collaborate. It doesn't matter what are your skills. It doesn't matter what you've done that before. Have you done it before or not? We will work that out. But if you're super skilled and super famous and all that, but you are not your word for several times, then everything else doesn't really matter. And
I understand that because it's your reputation, it's your credibility, it's everything. I mean, I think just like I said, having run my own business, that was always so important. And even if you can't deal with something right away, just letting people know that you've acknowledged their request and I'm driving, I'll get back to you in an hour. But just that little acknowledgement can make the world of difference. Like I think that just a sense of urgency and responding to people and how you communicate, all of that wrapped up together all backs up everything that you're saying. So
showing up, doing all the responsibilities that you are really accountable for. If you're committed until you discussed otherwise.
Absolutely.
So this is that one thing.
Great. So I guess in terms of motivation and inspiration, obviously the name of this podcast is Inspire to Invest. So is there any particular quote that is a favorite of yours?
Between the stimulus and response, there is a gap. And within this gap is your freedom to choose your life and to choose your happiness. So this is by Viktor Frankl. And this is also about everything. So no matter what's going on in the market, in your life, in your relationships, whatever, but before you respond, you have the gap. And how you choose to use that gap, what you actually do in that gap will define everything, your happiness, your productivity, your energy. And that's basically where your life is, in the gap.
Yeah, no, I love that. So thank you for your time being here today. If anyone wants to get in touch to learn more about your business and your opportunities, what's the best way for them to reach you?
It's always Instagram. You can book a call, like Calendly, in the Calendly link there. It's on both on Horizon and on my personal one. And for CRUA, it's also Instagram or just email. It's also in the top link.
Okay, perfect. So we'll include everything in the show notes below. And of course, thank you again for your time today. For anyone that is watching or tuning in, please make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe below. You can also follow along on social at Inspire to Invest Podcast. And of course, remember, when you invest in yourself, the sky's the limit. Thanks again. Thank you to Vantage Point Financial for bringing you this episode of Inspired to Invest. The views represented on this podcast are for general information only and does not constitute investment or other professional advice or an offering of securities. The host and guests featured on Inspired to Invest make no representations as to the performance of any particular investment. Should you decide to make an investment, you are responsible for conducting your own review and analysis. It is recommended that you obtain independent legal, accounting, and tax advice from licensed professionals.